Okay, let's double back and do a little bit of string review, and we're going to learn some new things about strings right after that. Okay, so let's go to Maya real quick here, and I want you to create a variable called myString. Just my str, camel case is fine. We'll just say Rick and Morty, which is my favorite show right now on TV. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight that and set that variable. So now, if you were just to get just Rick, so I'll just say just Rick, just the Rick portion of this, you could do it the way we had talked about earlier. You had seen in this Daredevil version, we could just get the positions. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 will give us the first 4. So let's go ahead and try that method. Whoops. So I'm going to say my string. Okay, and you might be tempted to move on here, but please hold on. You're going to learn something, I promise. So my string 0 should just be equal to the R, which it is. So I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to hit it here, Control V, hit the plus, Control V, hit the plus, Control V. And I'm just going to increment these numbers. So I'm going to go up to 1 on this one, and 2 in this one, and 3 in this one. So if I highlight all of these guys, should be Rick, should be the result. And I can just assign that to the variable just Rick. And I need to include that last bracket. Okay, cool. So just Rick gives me Rick. Great. But as I said many times, that is ugly and it is long. So we'll just go ahead and make sure that it gets labeled that. Ugly and long. Okay. So there's a better way to do this. So we can say just Rick is equal to, and we remember before there's an indexing method. So let's go and check that out real quick. Not on this guy, but on this guy. We'll go here. So Rick and Morty have, here are their indices for Rick and Morty. So what we can do here is we can just, what we need here is the very first one goes in this position right here. So that would be a 0. And then 1, 2, 3, I want that. But if I put a 3 here, it's going to cut off at 2. So you always put the one that's the stopper here, which would be this space right here, sort of this little hidden space right here. So what I want to do is I want to put 4 here. So let's go back to our opacity, have 100, and I want to put the number 4 here, right here, like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that in and check it out. So I say my string, and I'm going to open and close bracket, whoops, square brackets, and say 0:4, and highlight that. And if I evaluate that, that's how I get Rick. Okay, so using what you know now, you could say you can get just the Morty part. So we'll get the Morty part. Morty is equal to my string. And one cool thing you can do here is, as you see here, Morty starts at the number 9 right here. One other thing you can do is you can just do 9, and you know it's 5 letters long, so you can just say 9 plus 5. So it'll do this math first, it'll evaluate to 14, and then it'll go ahead and get this whole string like this, and then it'll assign that to just Morty. So that's our way of getting just Morty. But I think you remember that we could actually index in from the reverse too. So I can show you my string, and if I said -1, that's going to be the Y in just Morty. Okay, so I can go in from there. So if I count in from the reverse angle, if I count in from the negative side, it's -1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is Morty. So I can go back to -5. Let's try that. -5 should give me an M. Great. So -5, and then if I want to subtract 5, I can just do -5. Let's try -1 and see what that gives us, because that's as far down as we can go. Nope, that'll just give us the mort. So if you want to go all the way to end of something, you can just leave out the second argument. So what will happen is it'll just take everything from the -5 position, which is the M in Morty, like this. It'll take it all the way to the end. So you can highlight that and go to Morty. So all of that was review. That's pretty much review. Now let's try something cool. What if I wanted to make something all uppercase? So let's try and making the entire Rick and Morty uppercase. Okay, so we can say my string, and if you just type upper and then open parens, close parens, this is a command here. So if you run this command, it'll return back an all caps version. So it goes and finds the capital version of each letter and just returns this back. Cool. So if we wanted to make something all lowercase, right? So if I just type, let's do upper, let's leave this here on screen with not too many P's, and we'll say my string dot lower. This will actually give everything as lowercase. So that's a way for you to get everything as lowercase. There's even a capitalize command. So my string dot capitalize, and it'll give you that as it'll capitalize just the first. But you can also say title, right? So I can say my string is a title of something, title, and that'll go through and capitalize the Morty and the and as well. Okay, so you have all these options, all these great options when you're dealing with strings. You can even see if you can find whether Morty is inside of a string. So you can use the find command. So you can say my string dot find to see if Morty is actually in there. Morty, and I'll run this command, and it says Morty starts at index 9. Remember earlier when we went way up here? You can just see that it starts at 9. So one thing I can do is my string find Morty, my string, put all of that as position 9. This will evaluate to 9, and then we can just say my string dot find Morty. This is really long and bad. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody. Plus 5. It's really ugly, but it will evaluate back down to Morty, because this comes back as 9, and this whole thing comes back as 14. So it'll find the index of whatever word you're starting at. It'll give you back the value in the find. So you can also break this thing up into parts and stuff, but we'll talk about that more. What I really want to do is talk about how you can get all this information. Like, these are all great, but how did I know all this? This is fantastic. So one thing you can do is you can say the type of my string. Remember when you ran type my string, it says you are a string. So if I wanted to get help on whatever this returns, I can just put help wrapped around this. So I can say help and colon, and then whatever this thing right here returns, I can get information on that. So let me just clear my history. I'm just going to run this here, help. And you get the help file for this that's actually built in there. So let's scroll all the way to the top, and you'll see here that I'm getting help on string, and string is based off object. Okay, so you can go down here. There's a bunch of double underscore ones. We're going to hit that later on in the course. Just skip past all of those for now, and go ahead, and when you start seeing the double underscore or dundered commands, you can see them here. So you see capitalize, you can see there's center, there's count. You can find out return the number of non-overlapping occurrences of some string in there. So I can check to see how many times Morty shows up. It would show up 1. You can decode, you can encode, you can do all these things. You probably don't need all of these. Like, we use the find here just to see where it ends. But you can see here that find actually has a substring, a subparticle, like that we were looking for Morty, and we can actually check for start and end indexes. Anything that's in these square brackets right here are just optional arguments, right? Anyway, we will talk about string formatting later. We have a whole section on string formatting. I'm going to get deep into that, so we're gonna use that format command to do a lot. Okay. You can also check to see if something is a digit, or if it is lowercase. This will return back a Boolean, and our Boolean will either be true or false. And we've learned about those in our last section here. So you can check to see if a character is equal to white space, which is just white space, or if is something a title. So you can check to see if your string has all of these properties. Okay, lower will set everything to lower. So we've actually seen a lot of these. We're going to go over a lot of these in depth. One cool one is actually replace, and I will demo that real quick here just because I think it's super useful and I use it all the time when I'm replacing things. So if I wanted to create a new show and I wanted to be in it, I would want to say my string I would want to say my string dot replace, and I want to just replace and Morty with and we'll say comma Morty comma and Jordy. See if that works. Okay, so if there's a new show now, and I evaluated the new show, some dream show of mine, it's Rick, Morty, and Jordy. Yay! That would be my show. So what this has done, this actually hasn't edited my string at all. So if you've actually looked at the original my string, it's still just Rick and Morty. It's taken the data that's in the variable for my string, done some really cool stuff to it, and then it has a result. And so you're just taking that result and applying it to a new variable. So new show and my string point to completely different locations in the memory, and you haven't even edited your string. Another useful thing I find often is, let's give it some breathing space here, and this will help us segue into our next section, but you can say my string dot split, and what this will do is this will split your text. So my string, let's go ahead and evaluate it again, is equal to Rick and Morty. So if we just split on anything that's white space like this and ran this, we would get this awesome list. And we've encountered lists before when we were doing my cube, the polycube, etc. But now we're actually going to play with these lists a little bit more in more depth. So we're actually going to double back on lists now. So we'll do list part 2. But we can assign this to a variable. We can say the parts of something are equal to the result of split. Okay, so now if I just highlight parts, I now have a list of 3 things, 3 strings, Rick and Morty. Okay, so in the next video we're actually going to go over lists in more detail, and we'll start talking about them because they behave a lot like strings. Okay, see you in the next video.